Welcome to the Daily Drop, a show that focuses on all things Web3 and blockchain. Now, I'm sure you've heard a lot about it, but what is it? How does it work? What is real? Who can we trust? Now, I've spent thousands of hours researching this industry. I've attended many live crypto conferences. I'm passionate about the evolution in this space. It's pretty clear to me that blockchain technology is changing the entire world. Now, I've had so many people ask me, I'm just trying to understand cryptocurrency. How will it impact me, my money, my investments, etc.? After I spend a few minutes with them, they thank me for explaining complex concepts in very simple terms. Now, my goal is to make the Daily Drop a place where you, the viewer, can walk away with a better understanding of absolutely everything in the space. So we're going to talk cryptocurrency, NFTs, metaverse, DAOs, DeFi, many other terms you may not even have heard about. We'll even get into some cool niche Web3 concepts like POAPs, ZK rollups, alternative consensus mechanisms. And if you just got lost, no problem. I'm going to host this show 5 days a week, teach you everything you need to know. Okay, so my next guest, Russell Starr, is a Canadian crypto legend. So let's analyze Canada's role on the international cryptocurrency stage. Russell, welcome to the Daily Drop.
Hey, Bobby, how are you? I'm not sure legend is maybe the right term, but I'll take it. And thank you very much.
You are a legend. I have a poster of you on my. Can you imagine I had a poster of you? Well, okay, let's get right into it. So, as a Canadian crypto and finance veteran, when did you actually decide to immerse yourself in the blockchain?
Oh, that's a great question. Look, as everybody knows, crypto, Web 3.0, the metaverse, NFTs have been developing now for 10, 15 years. And what I'd always struggled with was basically access. So if you're a crypto purist or a Web 3.0 purist, really decentralization means everything. The only way you want to get access to it is theoretically through these unregulated or deregulated exchanges, and there's some serious complications around purchasing an NFT, buying a token, Polkadot, whatever. And while I was following crypto in its purest form, which is obviously Bitcoin, and then a little bit less so Ethereum, I started really getting interested in DeFi and what DeFi was going to do to really, truly the entire financial community. And being a finance guy, spending time on Bay Street and Wall Street, it became really evident that everything was going to change. This was going to impact all of our lives. And so I found this really cool company called DeFi Technologies. It's called Valour now, which I'm the CEO and chairman of. But it was started by two incredible, you guys would call them OGs. So Johan Wattenstrom created XBT Provider, which is now CoinShares. So he's one of our co-founders. And then Ollie Russi-Newton, who created Hive Blockchain, is also one of our co-founders. And their view is, look, if we really want to bring this entire ecosystem to the entire world, there's going to have to be a TradFi component to it. And so what we do, and why I like this company so much, is we wrap your traditional token, whether it's Cardano, Polkadot, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, we wrap them in what are in Europe called exchange traded notes. Here we call them ETFs, so that the regular population can actually get exposure to this incredible ecosystem.
Speaking of ETFs, I just want to get into this because it's so interesting. Because here in Canada, we have the world's first Bitcoin ETF, right? The first spot ETF was here, right?
Yeah. So what a lot of people don't understand or even fully comprehend is that Canada was one of the largest drivers of this entire ecosystem. Hive, Galaxy's listed in Canada. DeFi ourselves, Valour was started in Canada. The list can go on and on. Now, a lot of them are also listed now on the NASDAQ, but the real incubator has been this tiny country called Canada, which we all love. We've been one of the initial sort of innovators to bring this entire ecosystem to the TradFi world through these traditional exchanges. And yes, to your question, these ETFs, so Canada has, I believe, 2 or 3 Bitcoin ETFs. There was another one that was just launched. It was either Purpose or Evolve that partnered with someone in Australia to allow another Bitcoin ETF. But let's be blunt. The true holy grail is going to be an ETF, a spot ETF listed in the US, or a dominant global jurisdiction.
100%. Look, we're here with Russell Starr. We're going to go to the break, but man, I'm so happy to have you on the show. We are really going to get into it on the Daily Drop.
Bet.
I'm here with Russell Starr. Speaking of TradFi, anyone who doesn't know what that means, that's traditional finance. So let's talk a little about that, right? The intersection of sort of crypto or TradFi. So crypto markets have been up, but obviously, and this is in the last 6 weeks or so, but it's obviously been a terrible 2022. So what significance do you place on this bear market?
Look, it's pretty funny when you sort of go and look back at the history of what people were saying regarding crypto. Crypto was the millennials' version of gold. It was safe haven. It was an alternative currency. Now all of a sudden you get a risk off trade, and all of a sudden Bitcoin's no longer a store of value or an alternative to gold. It's a risk asset. My personal view is that a lot of what's going on has to do with politics. It has to do with what's going on in the U.S. If you think about it just logically, why on earth would they allow a futures ETF and not a spot ETF? And really, truly, if you want to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it has to do with protection of the U.S. dollar and the demise, and you're watching it daily, of inflation eroding the value of the U.S. dollar. And so I think it's only a matter of time before the world starts recognizing once again that these fiat currencies are doomed to failure. This whole monetary experiment, just so everybody knows, I have a master's in economics. I started my PhD in economics. Literally, the demise of fiat currencies is only a matter of time. People in the US, I talk to them all the time, and I'm like, how are you doing? How do you feel about your US dollars? And they're like, I feel great. I'm making 2%, 5% on whatever I've invested in. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're not making more than 8, 9, 10, 15%, you're actually losing money because of inflation. And they don't really understand that concept. And so here we have this whole new ecosystem, which has been under pressure. Let's be blunt. But if you look at it over a 3-year period, it's still one of the top performing assets. So what are you doing? Are you investing to trade on a daily basis into a meme stock, or are you trying to protect your entire portfolio and go long probably the single biggest and most powerful opportunity to invest in any sort of ecosystem since the internet? And my dollars.
Right. So I just wanted to jump in just because you mentioned inflation. And I'm very interested in inflation as we all are. I was like Wikipedia, Paul Volcker yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, how high do we think these interest rates are going to go? We have seen the highest inflation numbers in decades. So that's also my question in terms of the crypto market. How correlated is the cryptocurrency market to broader macroeconomic forces?
Well, right now, it's theoretically quite correlated to risk assets and the risk on, risk off trade. And so you'll see Bitcoin, go up 1,000 or down 1,000, whether or not people view inflation as dovish or hawkish, really, theoretically. My personal view is that the U.S. has entered into a recession. The economic data support it. It's hilarious. They're now trying to change the definition of a recession to try to not admit that they're in a recession, which I think is just a joke. People have to be smart enough to see through that. And so as the US gets into a recession, you're also talking about the biggest debtor in the world. As interest rates go higher, they're the single worst off party in terms of having to meet that debt obligation with higher interest rates. So my view is that you're looking at the market starting to trade into a dovish, more risk on trade, and you're going to see Bitcoin resume its upward trajectory into the mid 30s to mid 40s, probably by the end of the year. And you're going to see the Fed have to retrace and start reducing interest rates. So it's a really fascinating time to actually be an investor, because all of these signs have been there, and yet people just don't want to pay attention to them. I think for a decade they were so used to making so much money on just investing in Facebook or Tesla, they've forgotten about just simple economic theory. And simple economic theory right now says inflation is out of control, and you know, the Fed's in a very difficult position and has raised rates as much as they can, but has now put the U.S. into a recession.
Okay, look, we only got about 30 seconds for the break, but yep. BlackRock, I mean, they just made a couple big moves. I mean, this has to signify the beginning of a significant move of institutional investment into the space, right?
Look, if you were to look at what we're doing, we're seeing it daily. We've never had net outflows on any of our products. And we're just dealing with Scandinavia and retail. But when you see the likes of BlackRock, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs creating a crypto desk, this isn't going anywhere. And just what perplexes me is
let's hold that thought, because I know it's going to be brilliant, and I want to make sure we have the time to hear it. So we're going to go to the break.
You got it.
I'm here with Russell Starr. Okay, so Russell, before the break, we were talking about institutional investment. What do you think of that?
Look, so little money has actually penetrated this space from the institutional perspective. Really, their only option has been the miners. And now you're seeing companies like ours that offer a completely different investment model. But if you were to actually just look at a world where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of everyone's portfolios, or maybe institutional flows, were to come into this space, you're looking at hundreds of percent in gains across the entire space that everybody could be getting access to. It's just that it seems like the world is asleep at the wheel right now, and almost avoiding getting into this space because it has been so volatile. But really, if you look at and people always give me they always crucify me on the message boards for saying this, but if you look at the way the internet and its investment theme went, every single one of these bellwether companies that you see today had up and down days of 90% plus. And so what we're seeing right now in our industry is nothing all that dissimilar to what's already happened historically. And it's, you know, do you want to be exposed to the single most intriguing ecosystem in the world that's now growing 2 times faster than the internet ever grew?
Okay, so speaking about being introduced to the asset class, you know, we were talking earlier about Canada really having the first spot Bitcoin ETF in the world. So I guess my question is about, in terms of regulations, Canada does seem to be actually one of the most progressive countries in the world for crypto adoption. How does Canada rank against like other major international jurisdictions?
Well, look, we're famous for our junior market, for, you know, putting money into these tiny natural resource companies. And really, when you look at it, and actually, if you were to have Ollie, the guy who created Hive Blockchain, who's one of our co-founders, he was like, you know, Canada's famous for mining everything. Why wouldn't we be famous for mining crypto? And that was his thesis for Hive. It's just that now we've taken it a step further, and, you know, our company Valour is more about Web 3.0 in its entirety versus just mining Ethereum or mining Bitcoin. And really, truly, if you look at what this is going to be, I think you're going to see a world where, yes, Bitcoin is going to continue to appreciate. Yes, Ethereum is going to be dominant, but you're going to see all these other players catch up and become bigger and bigger and bigger, like the Solanas, you know, like the Uniswaps, Sushi Swaps, Luxor. All of these different amazing protocols are going to start to become more and more dominant in our everyday lives.
And look, it's interesting what you're saying. Also, like, it's funny because we're talking about Canada really, in a way, leading the world, like certainly being a significant player internationally. On the other side of that, we have China and Russia. They've both now banned crypto. Interestingly, while also launching their own CBDCs. So I saw you move your head. So I'm really curious to be what you think, whether you agree or not.
Well, yeah. So I mean, they banned crypto mining. They haven't banned crypto.
Right.
So there is a big divergence between that as a thought process, and what the world has not realized and has been entirely falling asleep, and not even there's virtually been no press on it. China and Russia have actually created a new currency based on natural resources, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if they include some of the crypto protocols into that. This is
Let's pause
back
for.
to my,
Can we pause for 1 second? Because so also they've got their CBDCs, right? So how do you see that working? The CBDCs versus these assets?
Yeah, look, a central bank digital currency, which you're talking about, is to me just another excuse for an easier way of printing money. The U.S. is working on it, but that's a mug's game. In my opinion, you're basically just taking U.S. dollars, turning it into an internet protocol, and instead of creating trillions of dollars that costs you, because you got to print the paper, right? If you're printing money in M1, same thing in Russia, same thing in China. If you turn it into a digital currency, you're pressing a button and you're turning it into trillions and trillions and trillions without any cost. But the same premise holds. You're devaluing your currency and you're creating rampant inflation. So the whole premise of Bitcoin in particular is that you're forced to not allow central banks to mismanage their finances. And if you look at governments across the world, Canada included, and I'll say this, without unabashedly say this, our governments are out of control, right? Like Trudeau has printed millions and billions of dollars. The U.S. is the single largest printer probably ever in the history. I think they printed more money last year than they did in the entirety of,
Russell,
of the US's existence.
Let's pause there for 1 second. I want to get to the break, and we're going to get more into that on the Daily Drop.
Sure, you got it.
I'm here with Russell Starr. I mean, dude, you're giving us such like a strong macroeconomic analysis. Like you're like a big picture economics guy. I really appreciate it. So let's start to wrap things up here. Like,
sure.
So we've got Canada, we've got our role here in the international community, but what role do you see the country of Canada playing for crypto in the future?
It would be amazing to see our regulator untether itself to the U.S. It's no secret right now that the SEC is vehemently against anything crypto. And just like Canada led natural resources, I think we have a really strong opportunity right now if our regulators would be a little bit more aggressive and open to actually be one of the world centers, which you're seeing Europe trying to do quite bluntly. And that's why we're focused mostly in Europe versus Canada or US. So Canada has a real chance of being almost the central hub for anything and everything crypto, which would be incredible.
Do you believe cryptocurrency and other DeFi, decentralized finance for our audience, do you think that these things, DeFi protocols, crypto, do you think they're going to become mainstream?
I think they're already becoming mainstream. One of the more interesting articles I read after the Three Arrows Capital debacle, if Three Arrows Capital and all of their loans had been on the blockchain, none of that ever would have happened. If long-term capital and their positions had been on the blockchain, people would have seen the overexposure. It was a failure of regulations versus a failure of actually what the blockchain is supposed to do. And to me, that's just incredible. So whether it's finance, whether it's just traditional banking, whether it's real estate, whether it's the metaverse, I think we're at one of those singular inflection points that we're all going to look back and go, wow, I wish I'd put 100% of my money into it. I'd be a billionaire now. And that's the kind of view that I'm taking. That's the kind of view our company's taking. And yeah, it might take 2 years, it might take 5 years, but look at what's happened and transformed between Amazon 1.0 to Amazon where we sit today. It's if you'd had all of your money in Amazon, you'd be partying with Jeff Bezos right now.
And that's what we're going to do right after this interview.
Exactly.
But this actually segues really nicely into my next question, though, right? Like, so without giving strict financial advice, what would you tell crypto investors who are pretty spooked right now by the great losses that they've suffered in 2022?
Well, look, I'd be remiss if I didn't take it back to our company. Really, you should be taking a diversified approach. Being just long Bitcoin, which is theoretically what most people are doing because that's sort of the household name, or Ethereum. You can actually get long Valour, which is our company. We're listed in Canada on the NEO exchange, DEFI.NEO, and you get a broad-based exposure to Ethereum, Bitcoin, and then basically every single other protocol as we launch these ETFs or ETNs in Europe. And what better way to sort of protect yourselves from call it the Terra Luna debacle? What better way to protect yourself from a screaming plunge in Bitcoin? Now, obviously, that brings everything else down, but you still look at maybe the Solanas of the world, and it's to a real extent outperformed Bitcoin. So I think you got to be a bit diversified. I like the idea of playing it on traditional exchanges because you get the ability to be a little bit more liquid, and that's what we do. And then obviously, do your research and be smart about it.
30 seconds. Who's your favorite personality in this space? I like Vitalik.
Well, he's Canadian, but
right?
to be honest with you, never met him. He's really good friends with Ollie. Johan Wattenstrom, XBT provider, is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. But I get a lot of time to talk to Pomp, and Pompliano is a pretty. He's one of our advisors, and he's a really interesting character and someone that I have a lot of time with.
Well, dude, please come again. Maybe bring Pomp. I would love to meet him.
Sure.
And just thank you for coming, dude. You're such a genius. It's awesome.
Thank you very much, Bobby. I really appreciate for having me on the show.
So that's our first show in the can. Special thanks to Russell Starr for being our very first guest, but certainly not the last. While Canada has carved out a nice role as a growing player in the international crypto ecosystem, our show is just beginning its journey. Now follow me on Twitter at @BobMan to follow along our journey here in the Daily Drop. I tweet about crypto, Web3 all day long, and I'm eager to build our Daily Drop community. And we're going to see you next time on the Daily Drop.